I would like to invite our panel members on stage, Dr. Alok Chopra, Dr. Sanjay Sachdeva, Dr. Manjari, and Rama Behen. And of course, our moderator for the session, our founder of Pragya, Ms. Somya Khurana. Let's put our hands together, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be the first session and the first panel discussion.
These three amigos have been a part of my life. Dr. Alok Chopra is just not a cardiologist. He also does functional medicine, has done several modalities of lifestyle and changing our lives. I went to see him, and the first thing he said, "Guriye, sab theek hoega." Dr. Sanjay Sachdeva, when I met him for the first time, he gives me a big hug. He said, "Everything is working out for you, and I'm going to pray for you." Dr. Manjari taught me not to scream, shout. When I say that, she basically talked about how the human mind is impacted with the self-creation of their own sound. So I start with giving my mic to Dr. Alok. He's going to talk about his subject related to the body and how we need to know about the body and how it functions.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Before I say anything, I just want to say something which changed the way we practice today. If we leave emergency medicine aside and look at day-to-day illnesses which we see, chronic illnesses, I realized that nobody was getting better. And all that we were doing was adding 5 milligrams here, 10 milligrams there, filing it to place, and nothing happened. And when I looked at the angst of my patients, there was some form of caring, a sort of compassion, which wanted me to be, a genuine healer. Especially when I saw and I felt what is happening by Big Pharma, what they've taught us, versus what can do, then inaction was not possible. And this inaction had to have action to take place. So this is how I started to feel that this rising of new compassion is going to be my next mantra. And this mantra is also connected with my colleagues here, Dr. Sanjay Sachdeva and Dr. Manjari, and I speak in behalf of them as well. So we all sat down and we saw, what are we going to do? How are we going to change this? And we stood in the crossroads. Whether should we join the fray of Big Pharma, or whether will we do something which can change everything, something which will be different. And we have to become the sort of crusaders, the lonely crusaders, who we have to really wait and see how Big Pharma is troubling us, and how can we change this and see the evolution of chronic illness like a twisted sick movie. Only thing is that this is not real. So the whole chapter of our life has changed, and we are going to change this in a different way. So at the moment, I'm doing a lot of work in cardiometabolic diseases, and with it comes the reaction to all other chronic illnesses, which means PCOD, even it is not in my dictionary, but I still do it, and also autoimmune illnesses, thyroid diseases, and other aging neurodegenerative diseases. So the question is that what is the commonality here? The commonality is found in the way we have learned and the way we are going to do this. So let's take this example for diabetes. Now, diabetes is everybody, today in India, about 70-80% of people are either pre-diabetic or diabetic, and it's become, India has become the diabetic capital of the world. And many times people come to me and I said that you're diabetic, and they say, no, we are pre-diabetic. So I often joke and tell them that pre-diabetic means it's like saying I'm slightly pregnant. You can't be that. So a very large number of patients I have are pre-diabetic or pre-diabetic, or sooner or later they will become diabetic. So how does diabetes happen? Everybody has taken diabetes as an illness. First of all, it's not an illness, it's a dietary illness, it's not a real illness. And how did this happen? To know that, there are certain realities which I want you to hear, which will be very disruptive for you and which will be different from what you already know. To start with, there is an ancestral past. And this ancestral past comes with a DNA which is around 20,000 years old. 20,000 years old, which means we are stuck and saddled with this DNA and we cannot change it. We can do what the hell we like. We can stand on our head on Jantar Mantar, it won't change. So with it comes a very funny property that every time we eat, we store fat and reduce fat burning. Did anybody know about this? Anybody? No one knows about it. So whenever we eat, we have this. So why would God give us this property? Why would He do that? See, God, first of all, didn't know that we were going to eat junk. And that time when food was scarce, the only way these guys could live without eating on days on end was the property of storing fat and reduce fat burning. And as a result, this property has stuck with us. Now let's leave this for a moment. This property is being conducted by insulin. Everybody knows insulin? Everybody knows that insulin is made in our body? Yes, so insulin is responsible for this. So let's keep this aside for the moment. Now let's come to what Big Pharma taught us. That in case that we have to get healthy, so we must eat more carbohydrates, because carbohydrates are very quick energy givers. And because the energy dissipates very quickly, we must eat more often. And this is what everybody does. And I'm sure still there must be people in the audience who are still being told that eat every 2 hours, every 3 hours. What is happening actually when we do that? When you eat something, the sugar goes up and insulin brings it down. Sugar goes up, insulin brings it down. And if this keeps happening, each time the insulin brings the sugar down, we are actually storing fat. Because when insulin brings the sugar down, first it goes into for use for energy. Then it's stored in your liver and in your muscles, but that's a very small part. It's like opening a refrigerator and taking out an apple and eating it. And all the rest gets stored into your fat. Where does it go? Around your organs. First around your liver, around your pancreas, around your heart, around your kidneys, around your everything. That means before you can even see if you are obese, your organs are already surrounded by fat. Now, how many of you, put your hands up, are doing this 3-hourly eating? Anybody? And you still think it's good, no? Okay. So this is not true. And why is it not true is that now every time we eat, we are storing fat. We can't change that. Okay, so this is the answer here is that how to create an answer from this, that eat less often. Don't eat less, eat to full satisfaction and eat less often. That is how the concept of fasting came. Now again, fasting has become a fad word. And this fad word has spread all over the place, and people are not taking care of when they're eating, what they're eating, whether they're eating junk, whether they're sleeping at 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever. So nobody is knowing, and everybody is chasing this word intermittent fasting. Who is doing intermittent fasting here? Oh, very few. So that means the rest of the people still have to be taught a lot there. Okay. So this is what it is. Now, the other aspect is that we have a body clock in our system. And this body clock in our system is going to work whether you like it or not. So it wakes you up around 5:30. It wants you to expose yourself to the sun so that the night hormones and the night chemicals change by, and the new morning hormones come up. It wants you to do an aerobic activity at that time. And to cut a long story short, there are times where things happen. For example, around noon is the best decision-making time. Around 2:30 is your nap time. Around 4:35 is your strength-building time. And around 7:30, your fat burning and your metabolism slows down and stops, which means that when we eat after 7:30, most of that food is being hanging around the place, and you are not getting a time to rest, rejuvenate, and repair. Night is the time when so many other things are happening, so we lose out on that. So just to put it together, that this ancestral past and this body clock is not going to change. You can do what the hell you like. So that's where we are as far as this is concerned. Now let's come to the fact about the timing of eating is based on our body clock. That means that within 4 to 5 hours of waking, that is provided you wake up at 5:30, you have to take your first meal. Now again, if you take it down from our ancestral past, these people used to get up and run to look for food, do some mental work, do some manual running around the place. They were hungry, they needed a big meal. So the first meal becomes our biggest meal. And nobody does that. Everybody starts with a little bit here and a little bit there, and your big meal is usually in the evening. So the whole day, they are running about, the sun comes down, there's no electricity at that time. So whatever is left in the morning is eaten before sundown. That's how the story of eating before sundown came. It's not some fad here. That is it. Nobody could see what you're eating. So what it means is that the first meal is your biggest meal, the second meal is your smallest meal, and after that you're going to sleep. So this is what is happening. So what are we doing? We are getting up in the morning and having some nuts or seeds. It's not that whether I'm eating wrong or right. We are still eating. Then we have a breakfast, then we have a snack between breakfast and lunch, 2 snacks between lunch and dinner, and then there is some, after dinner, there's another bedtime dairy story. So that means that 6, 7 times we are storing fat. So that is how we are all becoming diabetic. Now, does this resonate with anybody? Does it come as a surprise to you? Yeah. What, yes, no? Okay. So this is what it is. So we have to eat early, the bigger meal. The second meal is your smaller meal, and then the next thing. So this is how diabetes can be changed without trying anything else. So it's not just the nutrition that is there. You have to do some physical exercise. You have to do some pranayam. You have to do everything else. So our body is like a pyramid. The base of the pyramid is our structural integrity, how we sit, how we exercise. One end of the pyramid is what we eat, breathe, and drink. The other is our mental attitudes. And lastly is all the toxins and the radiations and the 5Gs, how they're putting it together. So we have to put this whole thing together and not just look at nutrition. Of course, nutrition is the driver, but that's the way it works. Now, in the times when, in the past, there was, when there were no refrigerators or packaged foods, our ancestors had to, walk a lot and wait very long for something to come by. And when this happens, the value of fasting comes up. What happens when fasting? What does it do? How does fasting help us? First of all, that all the ketones that are made, they are very important for us because the amount of, they don't put any waste products, the ketones. Second is that you lose a lot of fat, and this fat loss is not based on starvation fat, because people who do starvation or eat small amounts all day long, it doesn't help them. These people are also counting calories. Never count calories because the type of calories for different foods are different. So how can you, work it out on only real calories? So sorry, I just lost them.
Dr. Alok.
Yeah, sorry.
Dr. Alok, I'd like to ask, when should we learn about good eating habits? Learn about good eating habits. Which year should it start for in children and schools? And something about the second brain and where is it located?
Well, I think this should be started right and in the early stages, because even from the time of birth, people are, little children are getting pharynx and things like that, and people are giving popcorn to their children, and they're saying, hey, my child has had popcorn. And here lies the seed of diabetes is sown at that point of time. And at this very moment, I have about 20, 30 patients who are full diabetics, and they're not type 1 diabetics or the hereditary type of thing. About so many of them are full-blown diabetics, even below the age of 30. So that's the one answer. The other question was?
The second question is, sorry. The second question is something about the second brain.
Well, the second brain is actually our gut. And actually our real brain is a mere, sort of hanging around the place literally, because our whole gut is, there is a thing called the enteric gut, and it absolutely controls the brain. If the brain, gives one message to the body, the gut gives back about 9 of them. It's like, the example is like, say, the brain is like the Lieutenant Governor of Delhi, and the gut is like the Chief Minister. So every method that is given, the Chief Minister gives another 9 messages, and that's what happens. Now, in our gut, there are certain bacteria. We have about 42 trillion cells in our body, of which 38 are bugs. Sometimes I, laugh and say that, are we bugs having a human experience? And the total gene load of those bugs is about, 20 million. And you and I have about 25 or 26,000 only as compared to it. So this second brain is controlling our whole lives. Even the, neurotransmitters that are made inside our brain are actually sown in the gut. It's about 75 to 80% of the serotonin. Have you heard of serotonin? It's a very important neurotransmitter. And 75 to 80% is made in the gut. It travels through the nerves, into the spinal cord, then into the hindbrain, and then it comes back. So that's how the second brain existed, and that's how it is still flourishing, and it will always flourish. So I always tell my patients that when you wake up in the morning, please pray down first to your gut devta, and then think about God later. Just a joke.
Thank you, Doctor. We are what we eat and digest is what you taught me. How does it work when we make our body a graveyard?
Well, to bring it down to practical purposes, so let's make a day in the life of what you should be doing. So waking up at about 5, and your first meal becomes your biggest meal, and your second meal becomes the last meal. And this timing is very important. A lot of people who are doing this twice a day eating are taking their first meals around 2 and the last meal at any point of time. And that is why the body is making a lot of muck and it's not helping them. Which is therefore the importance of the body clock and the timing is very crucial for the success of timed fasting.
Thank you, Doctor. I'm going to ask Dr. Sanjay the same question about, does it matter what we eat? Is there knowledge that needs to be imparted to our children, to our adults, to all of us? We are what we eat. And what are the 5 elements that should go into what we eat?
Thank you very much, Somya, for inviting us over here. I am, first of all, I just want to make a small factual correction. I am not Dr. Sanjay Sachdeva, the ENT surgeon, as I was introduced earlier. So I should be not sued for being an imposter. I am a PhD in nutrition science. And to answer Somya's question about nutrition, so my focus in my practice and my study was on 5 types or 6 types of nutrition. Oral nutrition is, of course, very important, as Dr. Alok just explained, and Dr. Manjari is an expert on that. But I kind of extended this space into mind nutrition, which I think is very, very important part of what you are feeding your mind with. Every day, the television that you watch, the books that you read, the newspapers that you read, is filling your mind with information, and that is actually food for your mind. The second part, which is important, is your soul nutrition. So what are you feeding your soul with? Your spiritual diet is what? Thoughts. How are the thoughts different and how are they impacting your body and your brain and your gut? The third nutrition is skin nutrition. Everything that you're putting on your skin, from sunscreen to makeup to lipsticks to hair color to deodorants to perfumes, is all nutrition that's going into your skin. Ayurveda believes in this. They treat with oils, medicated oils, because it goes in through the skin. The fourth is IV nutrition. What are you putting in your intravenous fluids that you're putting in? And the fifth is oral and liquid nutrition. The liquid nutrition is very important because we are not focusing on water enough. Last year in 2022, Supreme Court banned RO. I don't know if you read about it or not, because 85% of India is deficient in minerals. And that is because RO strips the water of all minerals. Water, unlike most of us know, carries memory, carries energy, just like food. And the molecular structure of water changes every time it passes through pipes, through filtration plants, through RO, through metal pipes, and finally by the time it gets to your glass, it is already stressed. And therefore it carries a lot of negative emotions and memory. The same water we are using in our food. Therefore the energy of food is also changing. So that's kind of very important part of our nutrition, because 70 to 80% of our body is water. So what water we are putting into our body is one of the most important forms of nutrition.
Doctor, I'd like to ask you, is there some knowledge about the same with us knowing about it? Is there a system? Is there a constant reminder? Is there a way that we know how much, when, what should be consumed? And since we are focusing on the education and children today and their future and generations to come, my question to you is, was this wisdom already in our system?
Yes, the knowledge always existed in our Vedic texts and in our scriptures. However, it is forgotten, erased, and effaced by the modern medicine and by the teachings of modern medicine, which is now totally driven by big food and big pharma. So, unfortunately, most of us are being guided by the knowledge that is being spread through advertisements and through the modern education system. For example, in the modern MBBS and MD degree, there is no paper of nutrition. Nutrition is not taught to MBBS doctors. There is only one optional paper, not compulsory. Your pharmacy is actually inside your kitchen and inside your mind, and not in the pharmacy store. So it's kind of important to understand this, that where do you get your food from and what time you get it from, as Dr. Alok explained. It's all a part of feeding your spirit and your mind and your brain and your body with what you eat. So it's not about what you're eating. You are not what you eat. You are what you eat, what you assimilate, what you absorb, what you excrete is all a part of your diet.
All right, doctor, can I just ask you to bullet point the 5 elements that you feel the food should have?
Dr. Manjari, would you like to answer that question about the 5 elements of food?
Yeah. Good evening, and thank you for having me here. Before I answer that question, Dr. Alok was talking about diabetes and cardiometabolic disease. I've been working for hospitals for many years, and we see that in hospitals, patients come in, it's mostly sick care and not health care, the modern medical system. And people come in sick, they become a little better, go back, but they'd never get out of the main sickness they came with. Essentially, what Dr. Alok was talking about is that how modern medicine addresses chronic metabolic diseases is completely fraudulent, oblique, incorrect, because it does not address the cause of a disease. One of the things that, when we look at the denominators of any cardiometabolic illness, We, of course, know that stress, sleep, movement, food, all of these are important. Many other factors like your social interactions, your thoughts, your environment, what you're exposed to, the antibiotics you take also define your biological systems. But food is a very, very big part of the story. It's sometimes 60 to 80% of your biochemistry. And therefore, what we put into our mind in our mouth as food, if we could eat it more mindfully and we could eat much less of it, we could drive health instead of driving disease. And most of the food that we eat today is driving us towards more and more disease. And therefore, this whole, in fact, the modern knowledge of nutrition also is only focusing on eating more and, asking you to have more protein and asking you to have more, things, which is actually contradictory to how it should be. One of the basic fundamentals of nutrition is actually not eating, and allowing your body to do more things. For example, on a Sunday when we're not working, we get an opportunity to, open our cupboards, take out papers we haven't seen, sort our things. Similar things happen when we fast. When we don't eat, your body gets a chance to heal its systems, repair its systems, rejuvenate, correct hormonal imbalances, reduce inflammation, reduce injury that food may also be causing. So one of the very powerful things that we can do is fast and not eat. And that's one of the things in nutrition that is mostly not talked about,
So this was in the Vedic sciences as well, wasn't it? That fasting was a part of our monthly, weekly routine. Someone or the other kept a fast one day or the other of the week. So it has been a part of what we are.
Yes, traditionally, not just in our own systems, but across the world. If you look at all the original, people around the world and the native tribes, everybody's been practicing fasting. All religions propagate fasting in different formats. And it's half the job done if you don't eat to reverse a disease state. Forget wellness. We're not even talking about wellness. I'm trying to say that if you're sick, if you don't eat, you can become better, So that's one thing that's a very big thing to understand. The other is that every time we eat, many times, we are dictated by what we see or the perceptions that are built around us. For example, with food, one of the common things most people will tell you is that you need protein when you're sick. You need to take so much protein. The dialogue has become so skewed that now people are told that they have to open a tin of protein and eat a scoop of protein powder from that protein to make up for their protein requirement, which is absolutely wrong. That's just people trying to sell you protein, And instead of selling it to very small amount of people who may actually need it, they wanted to sell it to everybody. And so everybody is told, eat more protein. And the same thing is there for many other things also. Every time we see food which boasts of being very healthy, nutritive, added, vitamins, minerals, has the power to build your bones, and for children can build immunity, most of it is misleading. In fact, all of it is wrong. And therefore, food, one of the things with food is to go back to basics and just know food as what grows on the land and what you can take and cook in your kitchens and eat. That's what food should be. None of it should come out from something that boxed or tinned or canned or preserved or traveled a long way to come to your plate. That definitely is not nourishing.
So, Doctor, how I understand what you've said is a couple of things. That is that packeted food is not really healthy. Binging and eating while ill is also not the solution. But once again, where is the study? Where is the compiled study? The children at our homes, at our schools, in the world, are suffering from mental health issues. And that's purely a part of the society, and it's a global problem. It's a global issue. Do you think we could introduce "we are what we eat and digest" to children at a very young age?
100%, we should definitely not just contemplate, but do that right away. I mean, in clinical practices or in our hospitals, Dr. Alok has been practicing for 40 years. We see, as he was saying, 30-year-olds with type 2 diabetes, small children with learning disabilities, neurological conditions, autoimmune diseases, things, even PCOS for that matter is a disease which 25 years back or 20 years back, if a clinician had a PCOS patient, other clinicians would come and see what that patient looks like. And today, the statistics say that every fourth young girl has some form of PCOS. So this is the amount of illness our children are ending up with. And it's not just one type of illness, from neurological to cardiometabolic to autoimmune to learning disabilities to mental health to depression, anxiety. There's a whole plethora of stuff there. And our children, of course, are even more prone to it or susceptible to it because they are introduced to poor quality food at a much younger age than probably we were when we were younger. So I think it's very important to spread this information.
So it's all the birthday parties. Most of us have kids, and we have kids of our own, our friends and families, and most children go for birthday parties. The food that you consume there, it's pizzas, it's French fries, it's cakes, it's sugar. So it's a constant. Every time of celebration, there are pizzas, sandwiches, French fries, all fast food, junk food. So ideally, it's just not about the food we eat and how we digest it or the elements. It's also about the bhav, the intention. I'd like Rama Behen to talk about this today. Most children, or us for that matter, are watching TV while we eat, looking at our phone while we eat, sending out messages while we eat, having conversation with our offices and places of work or friends while we eat. How does that impact us?
Thank you, Somya ji, for bringing this up. All spirituality is a relationship, an engagement with life. And life here is being discussed as body, breath, and mind. So when we are engaging with the body, in Brahma Kumaris, we learn this motto, what are we being while doing something? So what are we being when we eat something? Eating food is an integral part of engaging with life, and it is so essential for holistic well-being. So as Somya ji put it, the bhav or the feelings, intentions we feel while we are eating food, that is very crucial because most of us are following a lifestyle which is very mechanical, and we are always in a hurry to cook, eat, or just to, get food on the table and eat it. So sattvic food is not just what we put in our stomach or not just eating vegetarian stuff, but it's also the energy, the vibration we are giving to that food. So as human beings, we are vibrational beings. So being and doing is that balance we have to bring into our lifestyle. So when we eat with a very elevated, pure feeling, when we eat with that blessing which we get when we offer food as bhog or prasad to the Supreme, when we offer gratitude for that food, you know, it adds another kind of energy to the food. So while we are taking care of the nutrition part, while we are taking care of the other things, the timing and how it affects the body, we also have to take care of the energy we bring to that food while it is being cooked or just before we sit down to eat and while we are eating it. And that's why it's a sacred act. You know, the body is, in Hindu tradition, the body is considered as a temple and the being is a divine being. So it's like you are offering a prasad to yourself. So when we are offering food to God, we prepare it with so much of sanctity and so much purity in our heart. But when we are offering food to ourselves, we have to have that respect for the body, respect for the self. So that is where vibrationally we have to elevate the quality of our food. And so, you see, it is integral to all religious traditions. People say prayer, they say something, or they say mantra, or they meditate before they eat. But again, it has to become an integral part of the way we eat. And it definitely affects the healing.
Should this be a part of every home, how food is prepared?
Yeah, again, then it's about, you know, the culture we create in our homes, right from the beginning. We teach our children, you know, what is this sanctity and this sacredness is about. So if we can introduce that as part of education or as part of our home's culture, yes, it will definitely affect the way we engage with food. Yes.
I'd like to ask you, Rama Behen, what happens when we put in a lot of meat into our body? How
Sorry?
does it impact our energy?
Lot of?
Meat.
Yeah, again, you see that food which is coming from slaughterhouses, you can feel, you can imagine the vibration of that place. You can feel the vibration, that pain or suffering that animal is going through. And all that dead food which we eat, what kind of effect is it going to have on the body? A lot has been said about, you know, whether human body is suitable for non-vegetarian food or whether it's good for health. I will not go into that subject. As I said, everything is energy and the way we engage with that energy. So you can look at the chain that food has passed through before it comes to your plate. So what kind of energy is that meat carrying? You know, you can imagine it's not carrying a lot of peace or joy or love. It is not carrying that kind of positive vibration. And even if you bless it or say prayer, you know, the ultimate thing which is going is a different kind of energy.
So, Dr. Alok, would you say that it impacts our mental health, our physical health? The energy of food, how we eat the food, what we put down, does it affect the mental health, the cloudiness in our brain?
The answer is yes, just taking a little bit from what she said. This really means something, that everything we eat has a meaning. Everything, like what you talked about, is exactly what I also believe. But I wanted to add on to start with that when we start our meal, one way of stimulating our gastric or the whole intestinal system is by integrating the vagus nerve, which is a nerve which comes from the brain, and it controls the entire GI tract of our body. So one way of doing it is, first of all, that when you sit down, you do breath watching. That means you're just taking your breath without thinking whether I'm inhaling or exhaling deeply. Just watch your breath as if you're reading a book and you're taking your breath. And you have to focus on a small, pause between the end of exhalation and the start of inhalation. And then that space becomes larger and larger and larger, and that's one form of meditation. So do that for 2 minutes before you start. But sorry, I missed out on one thing. Prior to your meal, I want everybody to take a little thing, ice cold water, and throw it on your face, because again it stimulates the vagus nerve and the parasympathetic system, which is responsible for digestion. After the watching of the breath, you do conscious breathing, which means that you breathe in to 5, breathe out till 5, and do that for a little while. Then increase it. That means you are taking about 6 breaths a minute. After that, you breathe in for 5, then hold your breath for another 5, and exhale again, which means you'll do 4.5 breaths a minute. At 4.5 breaths a minute, actually your parasympathetic system is really buzzing. After that, you sit down and do some grace to the Lord, grace to the people who have brought your food, the farmer, right? Go all the way back. And then hold hands with your family, eat, and you see the difference. I mean, I'm taking a little page from your book, but this is very crucial. Try to do this and see the difference it makes in your life.
Thank you, Doctor. So it's science and spirituality that is needed, and that is the need of the hour. Not in just our country, but across the world, because we send our children abroad, we go abroad, and we need to concentrate on our body and what's really good for us. Dr. Sanjay, would you like to add something to this?
So, Brahma, guide us towards the power of energy. What I have seen is that in my practice in the clinic, we have a machine which measures accurately your chakras, your auric energy, and the energy of all the organs of the body, from kidney to lungs to pancreas to your spleen to your stomach to your colon, transverse colon, blind colon. It measures the energy. It measures the number of thoughts per minute, which is very important, which I learned in the Brahma Kumaris when I was there. Dr. Alok and I spent about 5 days in Mount Abu, just understanding how they are passing meditative energy to the fields where they are growing the wheat. And the difference between a field which is not being meditated upon and the field which is being meditated upon, the growth was this difference, and the wheat which was not meditated upon, same land, same soil, and it was half of the height. And the same vibration that they would put in the kitchen when they're cooking. Same thing that when you go to a Gurdwara and you have langar, the love energy that is put into it, the love energy which your mother puts into the food when she's cooking, is always more delicious than when you have fired your cook very badly and he's angry at you and he's cooking with all the bad vibrations, and the bad vibrations go into your food, making it toxic. So we measure the energy of every organ, and each cell of the body, as Dr. Alok explained, we have somewhere between 40 and 70 trillion cells in the body. Each cell generates 1.4 millivolts of current, which makes us energy beings, as she explained so nicely. Imagine 70 trillion cells multiplied by 1.4 millivolts of current. How much current are we generating? So we are actually beings of energy, constantly vibrating and resonating at a certain vibrational level. If that energy is vibrationally, and we measure it, and when we see on the test results on this machine, which we do the test in the clinic, which Dr. Alok and I both, and Dr. Manjari also does, we do the test on all the patients. We understand the number of thoughts that are coming per minute, how are they impacting the body, what kind of stress levels are you living with. So we can actually now measure stress. It's like a thermometer, like you can measure fever, you can measure stress levels. So I could be highly stressed, and so is she, but what does highly mean? Is it 9 on 10? Is it 2 on 10? We don't know so far, but now we can measure it. So every organ, when you measure the energy of every organ, you change the food impacting the energy of that organ, and you change the thoughts impacting that energy, and that organ starts getting better without medicine. We've seen thoughts becoming things. And as we've heard so many times with the lectures that we hear at Brahma Kumaris, that thoughts are the most powerful because thoughts become your destiny. Everything, every word that you are speaking, you are thinking before that. You think first, then you speak. Then when you speak, it becomes repetitive, and that repetitive becomes a habit. The habit will become constant with your life, and that constant will become your destiny. So ultimately, your thought is what is determining your destiny, and the thought is what is changing your energy. It's so important. Emoto, the Japanese scientist, actually proved it with water. He gave the same source of water, he gave bad vibrations to, and they froze it in the refrigerator, and then they analyzed it under a microscope. And the bad energy water had tadpole and frog-like structures. The good energy water, which you just say, I love you water, it's purest water, I'm grateful that I'm drinking this pure water, that turned into diamond-like structures. The same water, same source. And if I show you the images on the screen, you will be shocked. I think the same water can turn exactly what Meera did. Meera converted the energy of the poison that she was forced to drink into Amrit, purely from thought energy. It is so important.
I think we've managed to sow the seed of wisdom about science and wisdom about how we can use science to benefit and bhav and way to consume the food which is prepared with the elements that Dr. Sanjay mentioned, Dr. Manjari and Dr. Alok. I think it's a combination. We are only sowing the seeds today. All this will be communicated, shared over our YouTube, our Instagram, and our communication with you all. A big round of applause for all of them to take time out to come here today. Thank you.